There Will Be Blood, Paul Thomas Anderson's 2007 film, focuses on the life of Daniel Plainview, a ruthless silver miner turned family man oil tycoon.
I'm a family man. I run a family business. This is my son and my partner, H.W. Plainview.
The sequence of scenes beginning at time code 1 hour and 2 minutes and 58 seconds paints an alternative perception on the pursuit of the American dream. It depicts Daniel's journey to achieving his goals of building the pipeline to Union Oil and how he will stop at nothing to achieve them, even if that means abandoning his boy and becoming a bitter, isolated man along the way. Throughout this sequence, Anderson uses a variety of lighting, cinegraphic techniques, and sound to illustrate the overarching theme of the American dream, all while being faithful to his filming styles of using long tracking shots, light and color to create complex characters that the audience want to sink their teeth into, and a soundtrack to perfectly capture a scene. The opening scene begins with a medium shot of Daniel and Fletcher as the camera slowly tracks in towards Daniel.
How big is his room?
By doing this, Anderson allows us to essentially zero in on and resonate with Daniel's emotions of guilt as he learns about his son's new living circumstances. This is further established by the dialogue as he fails to comprehend the conversation and repeats the question.
How big is the room?
The use of an anamorphic wide-angle lens brings context to the scene and allows the audience to understand what is happening around the characters. For example, as Daniel and Fletcher are talking, the wide-angle lens allows the fire and the working men in the background to be captured within the frame. The fire contributes to the motif found throughout the film, which depicts Daniel's tumbling American dream. As Daniel approaches the grandson of William Bandy, Anderson allows the camera to freely track in behind him to create an authentic feel. Immediately, the heavy contrast of lighting in the scene is established. This is a common occurrence in Paul Thomas Anderson films such as Punch Drunk Love and The Master. The light outside the window could be interpreted to represent the American dream, whilst the darkness represents how Bandy is stuck in poverty on the ranch. Bandy's grandson sees Plainview as someone who has achieved the American dream, whereas Plainview sees Bandy's son as someone who is unable to reach the American dream. The walls represent how the two characters are at the same place, but are separated by the American dream.
You're that old man, aren't you?
That's right.
I don't want you drilling out here.
Well, I don't want it either. Now, when will he be back?
A few days.
Tell him I'd like to speak with him, not about drilling. And I'll be back in a week.
Daniel's ruthless attitude towards achieving his goals and living the American dream is shown in the next shot as the stake is hammered into the ground. Daniel hasn't spoken to William Bandy about the prospect of the pipeline going through his land, and yet he has begun to map it out. The intensity and determination of this moment is personified through the introduction of the soundtrack, which increases with intensity as Anderson introduces a montage-like effect as Daniel and Henry set their plans into motion. The shots within the montage, however, are not quick, as is typical for the editing technique. Instead, Anderson uses a long shot and plays into his love for tracking shots. As the scene progresses, Anderson utilizes an abundance of zoom shots to go from long shots to medium shots of plain view. By using this technique, Anderson is able to further emphasize Plainview's complex character, all while creating point-of-view shots which engage the audience to make them feel as if they were in the character's shoes. This is found when Henry is seen walking away from the camera, creating the feel we are seeing the world through Daniel's eyes. The point of view technique is then employed in the next shot as Daniel motions for Henry to back up. However, Henry is not seen within the shot and the camera has taken his place. By doing this, Anderson almost creates the illusion that the fourth wall is about to be broken. However, no words are ever spoken, and Plainview only gestures to tell Henry to back up. Anderson's choice to use this shot enables the audience to feel even more involved in the scene, as no longer are Anderson's shots just point-of-view shots, but they are telling the audience to complete an action. Anderson's choice of lighting is further emphasized when Plainview is seen walking behind a tree towards his horse. He is backlit and all focus is on the scenery behind and in front of him. This symbolizes how Plainview is always focused on his American dream and never appreciative of those surrounding him. There is no dialogue throughout this montage, only music. Johnny Greenwood's Proven Lands creates the American dream working man on a mission persona throughout the montage. However, it has an eerie feel to it, creating an expectation within the audience that something wrong will occur within the future. use of music throughout this scene is representative of Anderson's filming style of using soundtracks to help perfectly capture a scene's atmosphere. As the final stake is driven into the table, Daniel celebrates as he is now one step closer to his goals of achieving the American dream and becoming an oil baron. The use of a train sound as the shot transitions from the ocean view to the stake being driven into the table could be alluding to the premature pipeline that has just been finished being mapped out, as it appears to be going full steam ahead, despite not yet being approved by the landowner, William Bandy. The next scene in the sequence begins with shots of Daniel and Henry diving into the ocean. Having successfully laid out the plans for his pipeline, ascending him to his goals as an oil baron, and having left the hole in the absence of his son HW filled by his brother Henry, Daniel resonates with the ocean and appears to be calm and at peace. Anderson then uses what is known as pre-lap to allow the scene to gently transition.
There's that house in Fond du Lac that,
The significance of this conversation is found in its reflection of Daniel's twisted path to the American dream. The American dream longs for that house, however, the thought of it makes him sick. After Henry suggests that they could go eat and get some women, Daniel replies with an obviously fond memory of their childhood, however, receives no reaction from Henry.
and even as a boy, I wanted to have children to run around in it.
You can have anything you like now, Daniel. And you should. Where are you gonna build it?
Here, maybe, near the ocean.
Would you make it look like that house?
I think if I saw that house now, it'd make me sick.
We can eat and get some women.
Take him to the Peachtree Dance. I say get liquored up and take him to the Peachtree Dance.
For the first time since the conversation began, Anderson has included both men in the shot, with Daniel in focus in the background and Henry out of focus in the foreground. This assists in establishing the importance of the moment between the two characters. For example, had Anderson continued the use of shots of the two men in separation, the effect of the conversation may have felt isolated and unimportant.
Take him to the Peachtree Dance. I say get liquored up and take him to the Peachtree Dance.
Yeah.
The camera then lingers on a medium close shot of Daniel, allowing the audience to follow his emotions as he begins to realize that Henry is not his brother. This is further emphasized through the introduction of Greenwood's soundtrack, which casts a dark and eerie feel over the space. In a typical Anderson-like fashion, the following shot, through the use of lighting, casts a shadow over Henry and leaves Daniel illuminated in the sunlight. As seen in chiaroscuro style paintings such as Joseph Wright's Ori, the use of lighting in this shot could be interpreted to symbolize enlightenment. As Daniel exits the frame, the camera remains on Henry, creating suspense within the audience as we begin to wonder what Daniel is doing off of the frame. This suspense is further established as Henry looks up to Daniel in the distance, his expression remaining sullen. The scene then cuts to a medium-long shot of Daniel, who is floating alone in the ocean and is seen to be visibly angry through the emotions sprawled across his face. The rage that is consuming him may be symbolized by both the rising intensity of the music and the approaching wave as it consumes both him and the camera. Thus began a turning point for Daniel. Having abandoned his boy and now essentially lost a brother, Daniel begins to feel his legacy failing. On his path to achieving the American dream, he has become bitter and isolated, with only his pipeline left.